Hi, students. Good day. So, as we start the second semester, we'll be having our first lesson in basic calculus. So, in this lesson, we will be discussing the definition of limits, um, or specifically the limit of a function. Okay. So, for this video, our objectives are okay. So, at the end of the interactive or at the end of this video, are expected to illustrate the limit of a function using a table of values and the graph of the function. Second is to determine clearly applications of limit of a function. Last, solve problems involving how to compute the limit of a function, including exponential, logarithmic, and trigonometric functions using table of values and graph. So in this case, we will be um, presenting several examples for you to be able to understand clearly the concept of limit of a function. Okay, so without any further ado, let's start with the first slide. Okay, so in general sense, limits allows us to actually determine what value a function is approaching when we use a particular input. Okay, but this does not necessarily or not necessarily what the function give us as an output. Kasi kung sa function or kung function yung pinag-uusapan natin, okay, all we need to do is to simply substitute a given input tapos meron ng output. Sa limit of a function, okay, um, what value is getting or um, what we input in the given limit of a function is actually the value it's getting arbitrarily close to or kung ano yung ina-approach ng number. Not necessarily the type na kapag nag-substitute ka, meron ka agad sagot. Sa limit of a function, we are determining the number, okay, na habang nag-a-approach yung function sa particular number, so in this case, itong limit of f of x as x approaches a is equal to L, okay? So as the function approaches a, okay, ang natutumbok niyang number ay yung L. Yun po yung ibig sabihin ng limit of a function. Now, let us explain limits using some analogy or an analogy rather. Okay? So say for example, or suppose you start getting a massive craving for a pizza. Okay? And fortunately, you happen to be near a pizza parlor or shop. So, malapit ka lang. Okay? So you start heading towards the pizza parlor or pizza shop. So in this instance, if someone actually or if someone were to describe, okay, where you are going, okay, they would actually say that you are approaching the pizza shop or the pizza parlor. Okay? Kasi yun yung nakikita nila. Ay, pupunta yan sa pizza parlor, sa pizza shop. Okay? So they would be confident in this description because as you keep walking, you are getting closer and closer and closer to the pizza shop or parlor where it is located. Okay? Tama naman. Papunta ka sa pizza parlor. Pero hindi naman necessarily yung pizza parlor yung pupuntahan mo. But specifically, the pizza or yung product na binibenta nila. Okay? So in this example, okay, or this example is actually the same thing we want to do with functions. Okay? When we take the limit of a function, we are actually describing where they are going. Okay? Now, let's define limit of a function. Para mas malinaw lang, di ba? Okay? Let's define limit of a function. So, limit of a function is we write limit of f of x as x approaches a equal to L. Okay? Ganun siya basahin. Ano po? The limit of f of x as x approaches a is equal to L or equals L. If we can make the values of f of x arbitrarily close to L, okay, by taking x to be sufficiently close to a but not equal to a. Ano ba yung tinutumbok na number ng ating function? Okay? Kung ano man yung tinutumbok ng number as it gets closer and closer to a particular value of a, okay? So in this case, L yung ina-approach or L yung tinutumbok na number as x approaches a. So ganun po yung hahanapin natin. Not necessarily na isa-substitute mo yung a dito sa function or kung ano man yung value ng a na yan dito sa iyong function. Okay? We do not substitute that. Okay po. So we have one-sided limits. Okay, we have the left hand and the right hand. For the left hand limit, okay, so we define left hand limit as, okay, so we write the limit of f of x as x approaches a from the left, okay, from the left kasi negative yung superscript nung um, a natin. Okay? So as x, yes, x. As the limit of the function f of x approaches a from the left, it is equal to L. Okay? If we can make the values of f of x arbitrarily close to L by taking x to be sufficiently close to a and x is less than a. Okay? So for the right hand limit, babalik pa rin lang naman natin. If the left hand limit is from the left of this particular number a, okay, so right hand limit we have, so we write the limit of f of x is equal to a. The limit of f of x as x approaches a from the right is equal to L. Okay, so if we can make the values of f of x arbitrarily close to L by taking x to be sufficiently close to a and x is greater than a. Okay? So how do we determine the limit of the function and the one-sided limits? Okay? Kasi there is a possibility that the left-hand limit or the right-hand side limit exists. Pero yung limit mismo ng function na yon, considering the left and right, pwedeng hindi siya nag-exist. Okay? Anong ibig sabihin? We'll have some examples of that later in this video. Okay? So the limit of a function and one-sided limits. So we have the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equal to L if and only if, okay, take note, the limit of the function exists if and only if the left-hand side limit and the right-hand side limit exist. Okay? At dapat pareho yung value na pareho yung value ng left-hand side at ng right-hand side limit. In this case, the limit of f of x from as x approaches a from the left is equal to L. Same goes with the limit of f of x as x approaches a from the right is equal to L. Since equal yung L natin dito, okay? Since equal yung L sa left-hand side at sa right-hand side, ibig sabihin, the limit of the function exists. Okay? So, take note that um, if the limit exists, okay, or the limit of the function exists if and only if the left-hand side limit is equal to the right-hand side. Okay, so mamaya mag-explain tayo or magbibigay tayo ng mga examples. Okay? So, finding the limit of a function using the table of values. Okay? So in this case, let's have an example. Okay, so determine the limit of 2x squared minus 3x as x approaches 3. Okay? The question now is, at what value does 2x squared minus 3x approach as x approaches 3? Okay? Let's have first the values to the left of 3. Okay? Yung less than 3. Ano po? So in this case, we have x, or the values of x is 1, 2, 2.5, 2.99, 2.999. Okay? So what will be the values of this function? If x is equal to 1, if x is equal to 2, 2.5, 2.99, or n 2.999. Okay? So if x is equal to 1, the value of the function is equal to negative 1. If the value of x is 2, the value of the function is 2. If the value of x is 2.5, the value of the function is 5. If the value of x is 2.99, then the value of the function is 8.9102. And if the value of x is equal to 2.999, the value of the function is 8.99100. Kung mapapansin nyo, ano ba yung tinutumbok na? Okay? So, nagsimula siya sa negative 1, 2, 5, 8.9102. Sunod is 8.991002. Okay? So, sige, i-leave muna natin siya since hindi pa tayo sure. Okay? Let's have the table of values from the right of 3. Okay? So, mapapansin nyo, dito siya magsisimula sa baba. Ano po? So, ano siya? The table is descending. Kung ang babasa natin ay yung value na nasa itaas. But if we will be starting at the bottom, then ascending siya. Okay? So, if the value of x is 5, okay? If the value of x is 5, the value of the function is 35. If the value of x is 4, the value of the function is 20. If the value of x is 3.01, the value of the function is 9.0902. If the value of x is 3.001, the value of the function is 9.009002. If the value of x is equal to 3.0001, the value of the function is 9.0009000. Okay? So in this case, ano yung value na ina-approach nung limit ng 2x squared minus 3x as x approaches 3 either to the left and to the right? Okay? So in this case, for sure, yung susunod dito, magiging siyang 8.99910002. Okay? So, as we add the value, or as we get the values closer and closer to positive 3, either to the left and to the right, it approaches the value of 9. Okay? So, in this case, the limit of 2x squared minus 3x as x approaches 3 is equal to 9. Okay? I hope that is clear. In case you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. So, for example, number 2, let's determine the limit of 2x squared minus 9x minus 5 all over x minus 5 as x approaches. Okay? So, the question now is, at what value does the function approach to as x approaches 5? Okay? Sige, let's determine the left-hand side and the right-hand side limit using the table of values. Okay? Let us consider first these values. These are numbers less than 5. Okay? So if x is equal to 4, the value of the function is equal to 9. If x is equal to 4.9, the value of the function is 10.8. If the value of x is 4.99, the value of the function is 10.998. And lastly, if the value of x is 4.9999, the value of the function is equal to 10.9998. Okay? So meron na kayong idea kung ano yung value na ina-approach ng ating function. Okay? Sige, tingnan natin yung right-hand side limit. Okay? So if the values of x, or if the value of x is equal to 6, the value of the function is 13. So if the value of x is equal to 5.1, then the value of the function is 11.2. If the value of x is 5.0100, then the value of the function is 11.02. If the value of x is 5.0010, the value of the function is 11.002. And if the value of x is 5.0001, the value of the function is 11.0002. So in this case, makikita naman na natin, di ba, yung sa left-hand side, yung sa right hand. Yung sa right-hand side, it approaches 11. Yung sa left-hand side naman, the value is getting closer to 11. Okay? So in this case, for example, number 2, the limit of the function 2x squared minus 9x minus 5 all over x minus 5 as x approaches 5 is equal to 11. Okay? So for example, number 3, we'll determine the limit of sine x all over x as x approaches 0. So please take note that we will be using radian measure in this case. Okay? So for the table of values, we have the values of x equal to negative 0.5, which will give us the value of the function equal to 0.958851. If the value of x is negative 0.25, the value is 0.989610. Okay? If the value of x is negative 0.1, the value of the function is 0.998334. If the value of x is equal to negative 0.0100, the value of the function is equal to 0.999983. And if the value of x is 0. Or negative 0.0001, the value of the function is equal to 0.999999. Okay? Now, in this case, for the right-hand side limit, so same value lang yung kinuha natin. Ang pagkakaiba lang is that the values of x here sa right-hand side are positive. Okay? So same lang yung value. We have the following. Okay? So in this case, the value of the function or the limit of the function sine x over x as x approaches 0 is, diba, the values of the function approaches 1, both from the left and from the right of 0. So in this case, the limit of the function sine x over x as x approaches 0 is equal to 1. Okay, tandaan niyo po yan kasi gagamitin natin, or this example or this function in example number 3 is one of the formulas that we will be using as we solve for the derivatives, limit of a function, continuity of a function, and all the rest of the topics. Pwedeng lumabas ulit siya or pwede namin ibigay ulit siya as an example. Okay? Sige. If you have any questions, ano po, feel free to comment down or to comment, tama, down the video, okay? Sa comment section. Now, let's have this one. So, at what values of x, or at what values does cosine x minus 1 over x approach to as x approaches 0? Okay? Sige, I'll give you perhaps a minute to solve um, this one. You may use any um, software for you to be able to determine the limit of this function. Okay? Okay na? So in this case, let's present the table of values. So as you can see, the values of both the left-hand side and the right-hand side approaches, okay, 0. So the values, or the table of values of both the values from the left and from the right of 0 approaches 0. So tandaan nyo na yung limit of cosine x minus 1 all over x as x approaches 0 is equal to 0. Okay? So tandaan nyo yung limit of sine x over x as x approaches 0 is equal to 1. While in this case, the limit of cosine x minus 1 all over x as x approaches 0 is equal to 0. Then, next one is the limit of the function e raised to x minus 1 all over x as x approaches 0. Okay? So, andito na yung table. Sorry. So, in this case, the limit of the function e raised to x minus 1 all over x is equal to, or as x approaches 0 is equal to 1. So, tandaan nyo din to, kasi this is one of the formulas that we will be giving you as we progress with the discussions. Okay? If you have any questions, okay, feel free to comment down below. Okay? Sige, let's have the finding the limit of a function using graphs. Okay? So in this case, let's have this one. Yung 2x squared minus 3x is actually the equation I have presented a while ago. For example, number 1. Okay? So what do you notice in this graph? Diba, yung mga values from the left, okay? If you will notice the graph, diba, we have here 3. 3 yung intersection. And I think this is 9. Okay? So as x approaches 3 from the left, okay? As x approaches 3 from the left, mula dito, papunta dito, okay? Ano yung number na tinutumbok niya? And what value of the function does it approach, or ano yung tinutumbok ditong arrow na to as x approaches 3 from the right? Okay? This is actually the answer. So when x is close to 3 on either side of the graph, the function or f of x is close to 9. It approaches 9. Okay? So yan po yung ibig sabihin nitong graph natin. Now, what can we say about these observations? Yung pinakita ko kanina. Okay? Yung graph. What can we say about these observations? So first, as x approaches 3, f of x approaches 9. Okay? So, habang lumalapit yung mga values sa x equals 3, lumalapit naman or papalapit naman ng papalapit yung function. Okay? Second is, the limit of the function f of x equal to 2x squared minus 3x as x approaches 3 is equal to 9. Okay? And lastly, the limit of 2x squared minus 3x as x approaches 3 is equal to 9. Okay? So, yan po yung ibig sabihin or yun yung mga interpretation or possible interpretation sequence that we can get from the example present. Okay? So, kapag may tanong, you may just type in your answers in the comment section of this video. Okay? Next example. Bakit example 1 na lang siya? Pero okay lang. Okay? So, determine the value. Ito yung ating function. Ano po? The function is equal to 4 minus x squared. Okay? Yung x natin, di ba, kapag sinusulat natin yung limit of a function, ang ginagawa natin is the limit of the function 4 minus x squared as x approaches 2. In this ordered pair, di ba itong 1/2 yung x coordinate natin. So in this case, the limit of the function 4 minus x squared as x approaches 1/2 is equal to 1. Okay? And in this case, in this ordered pair, yung L natin from the formula that we have presented a while ago is actually 15 over 4. So, pwede nating sabihin na the limit of the function 4 minus x squared as x approaches 1/2 is equal to 15 over 4. Okay? So, as x approaches 1/2 on either side, the function approaches 15 over 4. Yan yung mga possible observations. Okay? Second is the limit of f of x as x approaches 1/2 is 15 over 4. And lastly, yung sinasabi ko kanina, the limit of the function 4 minus x squared as x approaches 1/2 is equal to 15 over 4. Okay? So, yan po yung sa function. Now, let's have the following. So, computing the limit of a function using the graph. So, find the following. Sige, let's have first this one. The limit of the function as x approaches 1. Okay? So, as x approaches 1, take note, ito yung 1 natin. Okay? Hanapin mo lang muna yung value. So, as x approaches 1 from the left, ano yung tinutumbok niyang number? Okay? As x approaches 1 from the left, what is the value? Diba? Pwede mo nang isipin na yung value ng limit of a function as x approaches 1 is equal to positive. Okay? As x approaches 1 from the right, okay, ano yung tinutumbok ng number? So in this case, ito yung intersection nila. Yung 1, 1. And in this case, the value of the limit of f of x as x approaches 1 is equal to 1. Okay? Please take note, hindi ko sinusulat yung mga sagot dito. Ano po? So you have, or just take note of that while you are watching this video. Okay? Sige, let's have the second one. The limit of f of x as x approaches negative 2. So, asan yung negative 2? Ito yan. Okay? Yung negative 2 sa x-axis. As x approaches negative 2 from the left, ano yung tinutumbok niyang number? And as x approaches negative 2 from the right, ano yung tinutumbok niyang number? In this case, yung tinutumbok na number na function as x approaches negative 2 is equal to negative 2. Okay? Ngayon, baka isipin nyo na, yung nandyan sa as x approaches to, yun na din yung magiging sagot sa limit ng function. Hindi po. Okay? Not necessarily the case. Kasi kung may binigay dyan na specific function, edi ibig sabihin, it's not always true. Dito lang siya kasi wala namang specific na function na binigay. And take note, this line, di ba, is equal to x equals y. Okay? So, hindi siya, or this is possible na kung ano yung nasa x or as x approaches to, siya din yung magiging value ng limit. But it's not always the case. Okay? Sige, let's have this one. As x approaches or as the limit of the function or the limit of f of x as x approaches 0. So same case of 1 and 2. Ano yung value na tinutumbok as x approaches the origin from the left? At ano yung tinutumbok na number as x approaches 0 from the right? Okay? Di ba 0 lang naman doon? Okay? So in this case, we have the limit of f of x as x approaches 0 is equal to 0. Okay? Last. The limit of f of x as x approaches 2. Okay? So we have, tingnan nyo ha, yung graph putol. Okay? Merong discontinuity na nangyari dito sa graph ng function. So, pwede nyong isipin na, piecewise function to kasi merong putol. Okay? Now, in this case, what is the limit? O, tandaan, sabi natin, the limit of the function exists if the limit from the left is equal to the limit from the right. Okay? The limit of the function exists if the limit from the left is equal to the limit from the right. Okay? Now, in this case, the limit of f of x as x approaches 2 from the left, okay, papunta or mula dito sa left, ito yung tinutumbok ng function. Ang tinutumbok ng function is positive 2. Okay? Siya yung tinutumbok ng function as the limit of the function or the limit of the function as x approaches to from the left is equal to 2. Okay? Now, from the left yun ha. Now, let's determine the limit of the function as x approaches to from the right. Okay? Ito yung graph galing sa right, yung nasa taas yung color blue. So, as x approaches to, or the limit of the function as x approaches to from the right is equal to, okay, 4. Okay, that is from the right. So, ibig sabihin, yung limit from the left is equal to positive 2, yung limit from the right is equal to 4. Are these functions equal? Yun yung tanong. Okay? Since the limit of the function from the left is not equal to the limit of the function from the right, then therefore, the answer in number 4 is that the limit of f of x as x approaches to does not exist. Okay? So the limit of f of x as x approaches to does not exist. Okay? It does not exist. Since, yun nga, yung value ng limit ng function from the left is not equal to the limit of the function from the right. Ulit-ulitin natin yung kasi yung pinaka-important. Okay? Okay, now let's proceed with the infinite limits. Okay? So sabi nga sa slide, these are just additional topics. Okay? Sige. So sabi dito, evaluate the following. Okay? Evaluate the following. Limit of 2 over x squared as x approaches 0. Negative or limit of negative 3 over x squared as x approaches 0. Limit of 2x minus 1 as x approaches, limit of 2x minus 1 all over x minus 1 as x approaches negative 1 from the left. And the limit of 2x minus 1 all over x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1 from the right. And the limit of the function 2x minus 1 all over x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1. If you would notice, yung numbers 3, 4, and 5, they are all connected. They use the same function. Okay? And also in this case, yung number 3, ang i-consider mo lang ay yung value from the left. Sa number 4, ang i-consider mo lang ay yung value from the right. And sa number 5, you will both consider the limit of the functions from the left and from the right of negative 1. Okay? So in this case, actually, ginagamit dito yung idea ng vertical asymptote. Kasi kung alam mo yung vertical asymptote ng bawat function, you will be guided actually kung papunta ba saan yung function or yung graph ng function. Does it extend or does it increases without bound or decreases without bound? Depende sa graph. Okay? Say for example, without considering the limit, yung 2 over x squared lang, ano yung vertical asymptote? If you can still remember your rational functions or rational equations. 2 over x squared, the vertical asymptote is 0. Number 2, the vertical asymptote is also 0. Kasi hindi pwede maging 0 yung value ng x, di ba? Because this will make the function undefined. Then, for numbers 3 to 5, since pareho lang naman yung function, the value of x must not be equal to negative 1. Kasi kapag naging negative 1 yung value ng x sa denominator, magiging undefined yung mga functions. Okay? So, yun yung mga vertical asymptotes niya. So, number 1, 0. Number 2, 0. Numbers 3 to 5, negative 1 yung vertical asymptote. Okay? Sige, i-graph natin yung mga functions. Because we have infinite limits. Okay? So, if we'll take positive and negative 1 as the value of x, this will give us positive 2. Kapag 0.5, ang value ng function ay 8 and so on. Kung mapapansin nyo, habang papalapit ng papalapit sa 0 yung value, okay? Di ba yung graph ng function pataas? Kasi di ba 2 million na ito. And it is close to 0. Kapag mas nilapit mo na yan, say for example, the value na considered is 0.00000001. Okay? Baka lampas pa sa trillion yung value na meron. Okay? Now, if we will be considering the graph of this function, we have this. Ito yung graph ng limit of 2 over x squared as x approaches 0. Kung mapapansin nyo, di ba, the graph of the function, ito, extends without bound. It will extend continuously without touching the vertical asymptote. At ang sabi natin, yung vertical asymptote nitong function na to ay 0. Okay? Okay, so the function will extend without bound or will increase without bound as x approaches 0. Okay? Dito na papasok yung infinite limits. Kasi kapag ganito, yung graph ng ating function, di ba, hindi mo naman ma-determine kung ano yung tinutumbok niyang number. Since this value will increase without bound. At hindi siya um, dadaan sa x equals 0. Okay? So this will now be, or we will now be introducing here the infinite limits. And in this case, we define infinite limits as, or we let f be a function defined on both sides of a, except possibly at a itself. Kasi yung a natin dito sa formula ng limit actually tells us na possible na siya yung vertical asymptote or siya yung restriction ng function. Especially when we are solving infinite limits. Okay? At tandaan nyo, the rule applies also here na dapat yung limit from the right is equal to the limit from the left. Kasi kung hindi equal yung dalawang limit from the left and from the right, ibig sabihin the limit does not exist. Okay? Sige. So we have then the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equal to positive infinity or equal to infinity, meaning that the values of f of x can be made arbitrarily large as we please by taking x sufficiently close to a but not equal to a. Okay? So pwede siyang maging super duper 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 close. Pero hindi mo pwedeng i-substitute or hindi pwedeng maging equal yung x sa a. Kasi ang ibig sabihin nun, it approaches the value. Hindi naman sinabi na x is equal to a. Diba? Iba yon. Iba ang meaning kapag sinabing x is equal to a. We are not solving functions here. We are just determining the limit of this particular function as x approaches this particular value a. Okay? So magkaiba. Okay po. Sige, let's consider, okay, the limit increases without bound in this case. Okay? So we have to take note that infinity is not a number. Okay? It's just a representation na papalaki or super laki nung number na yun. Okay? Please take note that infinity is not a number. Sinasabi lang sa atin nung infinity, whether positive or negative infinity man yan, na the value is increasing without bound. If our answer is positive infinity, then pwede natin sabihin na the value or the function increases. Okay? Since positive, increases without bound. Pero kapag negative yung value ng infinity, or kapag yung direction ng graph ay pababa, okay? So, ibig sabihin, the value of the function decreases without bound. Okay? So, yun po yung ibig sabihin. Okay? So, it only shows a trend whether positive man yan or negative infinity. Okay? Also note that the limit of the function does not exist. D and E. Okay? In this case, sa infinite limits, ano po, hindi natin pwedeng masabi na ang limit of the function, say for example, in this case, 9. Hindi naman pwede. Kasi, the graph of this function extends without bound. Hindi natin alam kung saan siya titigil. Okay? So, the limit of the function in this case does not actually insist. Okay? But since we are considering infinite limits, hindi natin gagamitin yung does not exist. Okay? hindi natin gagamitin yung does not exist. If we are considering or if we are solving infinite limits. Okay? Ang sagot natin, hindi po does not exist. Though hindi natin talaga alam kung hanggang saan yung limit ng function. So instead of writing D and E or does not exist, we will be using, okay, infinite. Sige, balikan natin yung iba. Okay, so sabi dito, in our class, the answer is not D and E. But instead, okay, kung titingnan ninyo yung limit of the function from the left of 0, di ba, is positive infinity in this case. Yung right-hand side limit or yung graph or behavior ng graph ng function from the right, di ba, increasing din siya. So in this case, since both the function from left is positive infinity, yung nasa right, positive infinity din since equal yung dalawang limit on both sides of 0, yung from the left and from the right, ibig sabihin, okay, the answer is positive infinity. Okay? So since both values of f of x increases without bound as x approaches 0 from the left and right, then the limit must be positive infinity. Okay? Kapag nagsosolve tayo ng infinite limits, we do not indicate that the limit does not exist, but instead, we will be using either positive or negative infinity depending sa behavior ng graph. Okay? So in this case, the function 2 over x squared or the limit of 2 over x squared as x approaches 0 either from the left or from the right is equal to positive infinity. Okay? Next, we have the limit of negative 3 over x squared as x approaches 3. Now, the values of the function, given this values of x, positive or negative man yun, will be this one. Diba? Negative 3 million. Dito pa lang actually, magkakaroon ka na ng idea kung ano yung behavior ng graph. Okay? Kung kanina, di ba positive? Positive yung value ng function. In this case, negative. So, papunta saan yung behavior ng graph? Okay? We have this one. The limit of the function decreases without bound. So, the same idea na ginawa natin kanina, okay? Introducing the definition of the infinite limit. Okay, so we let f be a function defined on both sides of a except possibly at a itself. Then the limit of f of x as x approaches a is equal to negative infinity, or it decreases without bound. Okay, so it means that the values of f of x can be made arbitrarily large, negative, by taking x sufficiently close to a, but not equal to it. Okay, so same idea lang naman siya doon sa positive. So in this case, kukunin lang natin ano ba yung limit ng function from the left of the given value of x or as x approaches to some value. Okay, so the limit of negative 3 over x squared as x approaches 0 from the left is equal to negative infinity. Makikita natin sa the limit of the function negative 3x or negative 3 over x squared as x approaches 0 from the right is also negative infinity. So therefore, since the limit from the right and the limit from the left are equal, then the value of the limit, or therefore the limit of negative 3 over x squared as x approaches 0 is equal to negative infinity. Okay? So, negative infinity yung sagot. Since yung behavior ng graph, or since yung limit from the left is equal to the limit from the right, or the same. Okay? The same yung value. They are both negative infinity. Okay? Now, let's consider the items 3, 4, and 5. Okay? We have, for infinite limits, for number 3, we have the limit of 2x minus 1 all over x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1 from the left. Okay? Ito yung graph niya. Okay? Ano yung behavior ng graph? From the left, or galing dito sa negative infinity pataas, 'di ba? The graph of the function increases without bound if x approaches negative 1 from the left. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yung value nito ay positive infinity since increasing without bound. Okay? For number 4, kasi di ba yung number 4, as x approaches negative 1 from the right, ito yung from the right, so mula dito, papunta ka dito. So, ano yung behavior ng graph? Di ba pababa siya? It increases, or it decreases. It decreases without bound. So, pababa ngayon yung graph. Okay? So, in this case, the limit of 2x minus 1 all over x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1 from the right is negative infinity. Ngayon, ulitin natin or balikan natin yung kondisyon. The limit of the function will exist if the limit from the right is equal to the limit from the left. Okay? So, in this case, kanina, positive infinity. Ngayon, negative infinity na siya. Equal ba yung limit from the left and from the right? Hindi. Tama kayo. Okay? So, it follows, if we will be answering or considering number 5, the limit of 2x minus 1 as the limit of 2x minus 1 all over x plus 1 as x approaches negative 1, okay, does not exist. Ito, pwede na tayo magsagot dito or sumagot dito ng does not exist kasi hindi naman talaga siya nag-exist. Since, babalik ulit tayo sa kondisyon, yung limit from the left, ito, di ba, positive infinity, and the limit from the right, which is negative infinity, they are not equal. And based sa kondisyon, dapat equal silang dalawa. Kasi kapag hindi sila equal, then the limit of the function does not exist. Okay? Understood. Okay, so if you have any questions, ano po, feel free to comment on the comment section of this video if you have any. Or kung gusto nyo ng immediate answer, you may always ask your teachers or your subject teachers about these concepts. Okay. So, okay. So let's just go back to our objectives. So we were able to illustrate the limit of a function using the table of values and graph of the function. And we were also able to determine clearly applications of limit of a function. And we were able to solve problems involving how to compute the limits of functions, including exponential. Yung sa exponential, yung e raised to x plus 1 all over x. Then for the logarithm, wala akong binigay. Pero kasali na kasi dun sa ano. Okay? Anyways. Then trigonometric, we consider the sine and cosine using the table of values. But we were not able to graph these functions. Ano po? Anyways, we will also be discussing this during synchronous session. So, doon na lang kami magbibigay ng mga examples ng mga ito. Okay? Now, if you have any questions about this lecture video, so again, you may comment down below sa comment section ng video na ito. Feel free, ano po. But if you have still any questions or clarifications about this, you may also ask your teachers about this topic. Okay? So that's all for this video. I hope you learned something and give us a thumbs up kung nagustuhan nyo yung video na to and you were able to learn something from this. And mag-subscribe na din kung gusto niyo mag-subscribe. Anyways, this channel is not for monetizing. We are just, or we are trying to um, parang reach students na walang access sa um, mga bagay-bagay tulad nito. Okay? So hopefully, they'll be reached by this video para at least matuto din sila. Okay? So kung nagustuhan nyo yung video, please thumbs up. Okay. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.